The sky was dark and full of strange lights. A huge alien warship floated above the ground like a silent monster. Its engines glowed with blue fire and made the earth shake gently. Thousands of soldiers stood in perfect lines on the ground below. Some were human, but most were aliens with different colors and shapes. Their eyes were fixed on the center stage where the High Commander was. Standing, he was tall with silver armor and eyes like fire. He raised his hand and the crowd became silent. Today was the day of reward. The war was over and the victors were to be honored. Gifts would be given to the best fighters, and the best reward of all was about to be announced. The commander looked at his list and then spoke with a voice that echoed. In the air, Captain Raynor of Earth, he said, come forward. A tall man stepped out of the human line. His face was calm, but his eyes showed many battles. He had scars on his hands and a tired look. He walked slowly, but without fear. He stopped in front of the stage and looked up. You have done well in battle, the commander said. You showed courage, strength, and loyalty. As your reward, you are given something rare and precious, something only true heroes receive. Bring her out. A group of guards appeared. From behind the stage, they were holding chains. Attached to the chains was a woman. She had long silver hair and glowing green eyes. Her skin was pale blue. She wore a white dress that looked like it was made of light. She walked slowly with her head down. The crowd watched her in silence. This is Lyra, the commander said. She is a high-bred companion trained to serve and obey. She is yours now. Use her as you wish. The crowd clapped and cheered. Raynor looked at Lyra for a long time. She kept her eyes on the ground. She did not speak. She waited for the command, but Raynor did not move. The commander frowned. Take her, he said. She is yours. Raynor turned his head and looked at the cheering crowd. Then he looked at the woman again. She looked so small and so quiet, like a prisoner, not a gift. No, Raynor said in a calm voice. She is not mine. She is not a prize. She is a person. The crowd fell silent again. The commander narrowed his eyes. What did you say? He said. She is not a reward, Raynor repeated. You cannot give a person as a gift. She has a mind. She has a heart. She should choose her own life. Lyra lifted her head slowly. Her eyes met his. For the first time, they were full of confusion. No one had ever said such words before. The guards looked at each other. The commander stepped down from the stage and came closer. Do you refuse your reward? He asked. I refuse to own someone, Raynor said. I fought this war for freedom, not for slavery. You insult our tradition, the commander said. Do you want to be punished for this disrespect? Then punish me, Raynor said, but I will not treat her like property. The wind blew softly between them. Lyra stood very still. She did not understand what was happening, but something inside her moved. A small light in the dark, a small sound and silence take them away. The commander shouted, both of them, let the council decide what to do. The guard stepped forward. Raynor raised his hands. I will go, he said, but she goes free. That is my only request. Lyra looked at him. She did not speak. She just stared. Her chains were cold, but her heart was warm. The crowd was no longer cheering. Some looked angry, some looked confused. A few looked thoughtful. Raynor and Lyra were taken away, but the moment stayed in the air like smoke after fire, like the sound of a bell after it stops ringing in the chambers below. Raynor sat alone. A guard brought food and left without a word. Then another door opened. Lyra walked in. Her chains were gone. Why did you do that? She asked. Why did you say those things? Because no one said them for me when I needed them, Raynor replied, and because you deserved better. Lyra sat down across from him. For the first time in her life, she did not feel like a thing. She felt like someone, and that feeling, that small feeling, was the beginning of something big, something the Empire did not see coming, something that could not be chained forever. The cell was cold and quiet. Metal walls surrounded Raynor like a cage from the past. There was no window, no sound, only his breath and the weight of what he had done. He sat on the bench with his hands resting on his knees. His mind replayed the moment again and again. The stage, the chains, the silence, and the words he chose to speak when the whole Empire expected him to obey. The door opened slowly. No sound of keys, no warning, just the quiet hiss of old machinery. And then she stepped inside. Lyra walked in without chains, without fear, but with a strange look in her eyes, like she was not sure if this was real, like her world had cracked open, and now she stood on the edge. She looked at Raynor. He looked back for a long moment. Neither spoke. Then she sat down across from him. They said I could speak with you. She said they told me I am free, but I do not understand what that means. Raynor leaned forward. It means no one owns you. It means you can make your own choices. You decide who you are, what you do, where you go. Lyra blinked slowly. Her hands were folded in her lap like she was still waiting for a command. No one has ever asked me what I want, she said. I was created to serve, trained to obey, taught to listen, not to think. You can start now, Raynor said. You can learn. You have a name. You have a voice. Use it. Lyra looked down. Her fingers moved nervously. Do you hate the Empire? She asked. Is that why you did this? Raynor shook his head gently. I do not hate, but I cannot be silent when I see something wrong. I fought for Earth. I fought for peace, not for ownership, not for chains outside the cell. The guards listened. One whispered to the other, the human is dangerous. He speaks like a rebel. If others follow him, the system could fall apart. Inside the room, Lyra stood up and walked to the wall. She touched the metal with her fingers. This The place feels like a cage, she said. Even without chains it is a cage, Raina replied, but only if you let it be. Your mind is the real prison and your mind is also the key. She turned to face him, her eyes no longer blank, they held a flicker of something. New, something sharp, something alive. They will not let you go, she said. You refused their gift. You made them look weak. They will punish you then. Let them try, Raina said. If I must suffer to show the truth, so be it. Lyra walked closer. You do not know me, she said. Yet you treated me like a person, not a reward, not a toy. Why? Because I was once like you, Raina said. Used, ordered, discarded. Someone saved me, and now it is my turn to save someone. The door opened again. This time a tall officer entered. His armor was black with gold edges. His face was cold like stone. He looked at Raina, then at Lyra. Leave us, he said to her. Now Lyra hesitated, then slowly turned and walked out. The officer sat in her place. He placed a file on the table. You are making a mistake, he said. You think you are noble, you think you are right, but you are only human. And the Empire does not bend for one man. Raina stayed silent. The officer leaned forward. Do you know how many wars we have won, how many systems we control? Our way works, yours is weak. Sentiment is weakness. Freedom is chaos. Maybe, Raina said, or maybe fear is your only strength, and once that fear is gone, your empire will crumble. The officer stood quickly. Your words are poison, he said. If you speak them again, we will silence you completely. He left the room without another word. The door closed behind him with a loud click. Raina sat alone once more. But now he smiled just a little. Somewhere far away in a quiet room, Lyra sat at a small table. She had food, water, a bed, but she did not eat. She did not sleep. She thought about the human. The one who refused to break her, the one who spoke to her like she was real. She looked at her hands, then at the mirror, and for the first time she asked herself a question. Who am I? Not what she was made to be, not what she was told to be, but who she truly was inside. She did not know the answer, but she wanted to find it, and that desire, that small voice inside her, was the beginning of her freedom. In the darkness of space, a tiny light had started to glow, and no one, not even the Empire, could stop it now. The stars outside the station moved slowly like silent watchers in the sky. The metal hallways were long and cold. Guards walked with quiet steps while cameras blinked in every corner. No sound of joy, no voice of freedom, only rules and silence. Inside the station, Raina sat in a small room. No chains, no threats, but still a prisoner, not because of bars, but because of the eyes that watched him day and night. He was not afraid. He waited across the hall. Lyra was in a learning chamber. Books, screens, languages. For the first time, she was being taught to think, not just to obey. Her fingers moved across the screen. Her mind opened little by little. She read stories of Earth. She read about freedom and rights. She read about choice. Her chest felt strange, like something inside her wanted to rise but did not know how. Late at night, she returned to her room. The light was dim, the silence heavy. She closed her eyes, but sleep did not come then. A soft knock at her door. She rose slowly and opened it. Outside stood a small being, not human, not like her, skin like glass and eyes wide with fear. Are you the one they call Lyra? The being whispered. I am Sen. They say the human gave you freedom. Is it true? Lyra stepped back. She did not know what to say. She had no chains, no orders, but was she truly free? Sen entered quickly. Others are whispering, he said. Others like me. They want to know if they can be free too, if the stories are true, if the human can help us. Lyra felt her heart beat faster. The room felt smaller. The truth was bigger than she expected it. She sat down and looked at Sen. His hands shook. His voice was full of hope and fear. He was like her once. Still in chains, still afraid to speak. Do not know if we are free, she said, but I know he did not treat me like a thing. He looked at me like I was real, and maybe, just maybe, that is the beginning. Behind the walls, others listened. The Empire had ears everywhere. 2 officers stood in the control room watching, recording. They whispered to each other. The human is spreading ideas the girl is speaking to. They must be stopped before others believe them. The next day, Raina was taken to the chamber of review. Bright lights, long table, faces behind masks, no names, only judgment. You have broken the order, they said. You refused the gift. You disturbed the balance. You are planting dangerous thoughts. Raina stood without fear. He looked at each mask. He spoke clearly. You say balance, but what you mean is control. You say order, but you mean slavery. If kindness is dangerous, then maybe your system should be afraid. The room was silent. The masked judges said nothing more. They signaled the guards. Raina was taken back that night. Lyra returned to her room, but she did not sleep. She waited. A second knock came, then a third. One by one, 3 more beings entered, each from a different world, each with different skin, but all with the same question. Is it true? Can we be free? Lyra looked at them. She remembered the cold cell. She remembered the human voice saying, you are not a thing. And she nodded. Yes, she said, but freedom is not given. It is taken. It is learned. It is shared. In the shadows of the station, a light began to grow. Not fire, not war, but something stronger. Hope. Officers reported the rise in whispers. They warned their commanders. The human must be silenced. The girl must be reset before this spreads like a storm. But the storm had already begun. In a hidden room, Lyra wrote words in a small book, not orders, Not commands but dreams, words like choice, like voice, like tomorrow. She left the book under her bed, not locked, not hidden, because she wanted it to be found. Rainer sat in his room and smiled. Without reason he felt the change, not in the air but in the people. He was not alone anymore. His kindness had taken root, and now others were growing from it. One act, one word, one choice. It was dangerous, yes, but it was also powerful, more powerful than any weapon, and the Empire, though mighty and cruel, had no shield against it, not anymore. Night had fallen across the Empire Station, but the stars outside looked the same, cold, still, far away from the growing fire. Within, Lyra stood by the window of her room. Her hands rested on the glass. Her breath made a small fog. She watched the sky, but her thoughts were not there. They were with the voices she had heard, the whispers that had come to her in the dark, voices asking for truth, voices asking for freedom. Behind her the door opened without a sound. She turned slowly. A young being stepped inside. He was thin and small, with golden skin and glowing eyes. He looked around nervously and then closed the door. You are her, he said. The one the human freed. I am Dren. I came because I believe you. Lyra stepped forward, her voice calm but sharp like light in a tunnel. Why do you believe me? She asked. Because I saw what he did. Dren answered. I was there. I saw him say no. I saw him give you choice. And I have not stopped thinking about it since she watched him. For a moment he was afraid, but still he had come. That was courage. That was the beginning of something real others will come to, he said. More than you know. They all feel it. This place is wrong. We just never had words for it, but now we do. She sat down slowly. So many thoughts, so many feelings. She had never asked for this, but now it was here. He is still locked away, she said. They fear what he says. They fear his silence. Tudrin looked at her with hope in his voice. Then we must free him before they erase him, before they erase Ewok. Across the station, a different meeting was happening. 3 officers sat in a private room. Their faces were tense, their voices sharp and quick. The infection is spreading. One said, ideas are more dangerous than weapons. The human is the source. He must be removed permanently. And the girl asked another, what of her? She has become a symbol. If we strike now, we create a martyr. We must be careful. We must break her quietly. Orders were sent, plans were made. The Empire worked in silence like a shadow with claws, but shadows cannot hold sparks, and this spark was ready to burn. That night Lyra received a message. Not a voice, not a screen, but a piece of paper slipped under her door. It had one line, he is being moved tonight. Hands shook, her heart raced. She knew what that meant. They were going to erase him, wipe his memory, break his mind, turn him into a shell. She had to move. Now Dren met her in the hall. 2 others joined them, one tall with red skin and one quiet with silver eyes. They moved like ghosts, fast and silent, down the hall, past the cameras, through the service tunnels. Lyra led the way. She had studied the maps, she had listened, she had learned. They reached the transport room. The lights were low, no guards. Not yet. Inside a transport pod, Rainer sat, his eyes closed, his hands bound. A machine beside him hummed with quiet danger. Lyra rushed in. Her fingers moved fast across the panel. The machine stopped. Rainer opened his eyes. You should not be here, he said. It is not safe. Neither were you, she replied. And still you came for me. He stood slowly, weak but alive. His eyes met hers, and in them was pride. The others watched in silence, then helped him out of the pod. The group moved quickly back the way they came, but the alarm was waiting. Red lights, screams from speakers, footsteps like thunder. They ran hall after hall, door after door, until they reached the learning chamber. Lyra locked the door behind them. Rainer looked around. Screens, books, voices of the old world. What now? He asked. Now we show them, she said. We tell the truth, not just to a few, but to everyone. She connected the chamber to the main system. She uploaded a message. Her voice filled every corner of the station. I was born to serve, but I learned to think, and now I choose to speak. This human gave me freedom, and now I give it to you. Ask yourself why we are afraid to choose. Ask yourself why silence is safer than truth, and then ask if that is the life you want. Across the station, people stopped. They listened, they looked at each other, and something inside them moved. The message ended. The door broke open. Guards flooded in, but it was too late. The spark had become a flame, and the flame had touched every heart. Rainer stood beside Lyra. Dren stood beside them both. They did not run, they did not bow, they simply waited, because they knew the fire had started and no one could stop it now. The silence after the message was not peace, it was the deep breath before the storm. The Empire had heard every word, every voice, every truth that was hidden beneath the surface of obedience. Rainer sat in the dark room again, his hands free, his mind sharp, but now the walls felt thinner. The fear around him had changed shape. Lyra was not there. She had been taken to questioning, not with pain, not with chains, but with soft voices and kind words that tried to twist her mind. A woman with wide eyes sat across from her. She smiled without warmth. She spoke without feeling. You are special. You are intelligent, but you are confused. This is not your fight. You are being used. Lyra stared at her without blinking. She remembered Rainer's words. She remembered the fire that had started in her heart. I choose this fight, she said. No one uses me anymore. The woman did not smile again. She stood and left the room without another word. In the halls of the station, things had shifted. Guards walked faster, doors locked. Quicker whispers were now louder. Hope had taken root, but fear still held power. In a hidden room, Dren spoke with 2 others. They were scared. One wanted to run, the other wanted to hide. Dren tried to calm them. We started something real, he said. We cannot stop now. We must help them. We must stand together. But someone else was listening. Someone close. Someone trusted. That night Raina was moved, not to another cell, but to a transport room. Bright lights for guards. A general waiting with a mess. Time is over, the general said. You are too dangerous to remain alive. Raina stood without fear. Then let history remember what you fear most. A free voice, but just as the order was given, the lights went out. Smoke filled the room. Alarms screamed. Footsteps echoed like thunder. Lyra ran in through the side door. Dren followed behind her. She threw a signal beacon on the ground, and the floor opened with a hiss. Come now, she shouted. Drenna jumped down into the tunnel. Dren helped him. Lyra followed last. Tunnel was dark and narrow, but it led to safety, or so they thought. At the end of the tunnel a figure waited, not a soldier, not a guard, but the one who had betrayed them. Dren froze, his eyes wide with disbelief. You? Why? The figure stepped forward, his voice cold. Because I wanted to be safe, because I wanted peace, because I was afraid. He raised a hand behind him. Soldiers appeared, guns ready, eyes hard. Raina stepped in front of Lyra. She did the same for Dren. You will not stop this, Raina said. You cannot stop the truth. But the traitor smiled. I do not need to stop the truth. I just need to stop you. A shot rang out, not from the guards, but from the shadows. The traitor fell. One of the guards dropped his weapon. Then another. We are tired of this. One said. We are not blind anymore, said the other. The remaining guards lowered their arms. Lyra moved quickly. She pulled Raina and Dren into a side passage. They ran again, upward, forward to the surface. The air was different above. The stars looked brighter. The station no longer felt like steel and fire. It felt like change, but the cost was clear. I sat down on the ground, breathing hard. Looking up, one of them was gone. The quiet one, lost in the escape. No one spoke. They only felt the silence where a voice once lived. Lyra sat beside him. She placed her hand over his. We are still here, she said, and that means we keep going. Raina looked at her. Not as a soldier, not as a leader, but as a person. You were never a reward, he said. You were always the reason. Inside the station, the message was still playing on secret channels. More voices joined it, more names, more truths. The Empire responded with force, raids, threats, punishments, but something had broken, something deep, something old, and no soldier, no law, no command could fix it. Again the spark was now a fire. The fire was now a wave, and the wave was rising fast across distant systems. Other beings began to speak. They said the human gave her a choice. They said she gave them a voice. Raina and Lyra stood together, not as hero and follower, not as master and gift, but as equals. Their bond was not written in chains, but in courage. And though the road ahead was full of danger, full of shadow, full of loss, they walked it with open eyes, because the fight was no longer just theirs. It belonged to everyone, and it had just begun. The Empire thought silence was strength. It believed fear could last forever. It believed no voice could rise above the rules carved into stone. But fire does not ask for permission, and truth does not wait for approval. In a hidden medical chamber beneath the station, Lyra opened her eyes. Her breath was slow, her thoughts clear. She had escaped the reconditioning chamber, but not without pain. They tried to erase her. They tried to strip her of her name, her memory, her fire. But something deeper had survived, something stronger than any machine. Raina stood by her side, his hand resting gently near hers. He had not left since they pulled her from the edge. He had fought through walls and guards and fire just to find her. You were still here, she whispered. And I always will be, he said. She sat up slowly, her body weak but her spirit sharp. What happened? She asked. The message spread, Raina said, across the station. Across systems, others are speaking, others are rising. Lyra closed her eyes and listened, not to sounds, but to the pulse of something new. Something alive in the lower sectors. Workers gathered in dark corners. They shared stories, they shared names, they shared courage. One by one voices began to rise. I am not a tool, I am not a number, I am not yours, I am mine. The Empire tried to stop it. Cameras were turned off, messages were blocked, but the words had already taken rooting. The outer colony's banners appeared, simple, bold, free beings, speak, free beings, fight. The Empire sent warnings, then weapons, but weapons could not stop what had already awakened. Lyra stood before the small group in the resistance chamber. She looked at them not as followers, but as equals. She had no crown, no title, but her voice held more weight than any command. We do not ask for freedom, she said. We take it. We build it, we live it. The room was quiet, not from fear but from listening. Raina stepped beside her. He raised his hand, not in command but in unity. You followed us because of what we did, he said. Now lead yourselves by what you believe. One by one they nodded. Different species, different faces, same fire in the central command tower. The High Council met in rage. Their words sharp, their fear deeper than ever. It is growing, said one. It is spreading, said another. They speak her name like a banner. They speak his name like a torch. Then we must end them both, said the leader. Erase their names from memory, burn their faces from every record. An order was given. A strike team prepared. The target was clear. The chamber of resistance. Raina and Lyra had already planned for it. They knew the Empire would come. They knew it would try to crush the heart of the storm, but this time they would not run. We stand here, she said, not behind walls, not in shadows. Here they placed the signal beacon on the roof. They sent a message through every open channel. If you believe in freedom, come now, stand with us. Let the Empire see your face. The chamber doors opened, not with fear but with purpose. Outside thousands waited, some with weapons, some with nothing. But all with the same reason. Lyra stepped into the light. Reyna followed the crowd, made way not with silence but with songs. Freedom does not bow, freedom does not kneel, freedom stands. The Empire's ships arrived above, dark and full of fire. They hovered like dragons, ready to burn, but below them stood a wave too large to crush, too alive to kill. The first shots were fired. The first walls shook, but the crowd did not scatter. Lyra raised her hand. She pointed to the sky. You can break our homes, she shouted, but not our will. You can burn our bodies, but not our names. Reyna lifted a shield over a child, then handed it to someone else. Everyone protects everyone, he said. The ground battle began, but something strange happened. Some soldiers of the Empire dropped their weapons. Some turned and stood beside the crowd. They had heard the message, they had seen the spark, and now they could not unsee it. The battle turned not from force but from choice. By the end of the day, the sky was quiet again, the ships gone, the fire smoke rising gently. But in that smoke stood something new, a movement, a voice, a future. Reyna looked around. He saw no slaves, no masters, only people. Lyra walked beside him, her steps light, her eyes bright. We are not done, she said, but we have begun. He smiled without words because he knew this was more than rebellion. This was more than survival. This was the rise of the free, and it would not be stopped, not now, not ever. The sun rose over the broken towers of the station. Its light touched metal ruins and scorched banners. The air was thick with smoke, but the people stood tall. Lyra walked through the silent crowd. She did not wear armor, she did not carry weapons, but every step she took made the ground feel steady beside her. Reyna moved with quiet strength. His eyes scanned the horizon, not for enemies, but for a sign of what came next. They had won a battle, not the war. The Empire was not gone, it was watching. It was waiting. Messages from other colonies arrived every hour, some full of hope, some full of fear, some full of questions. They look to you now, Reyna said to both of us. Lyra stopped at the center of the old command square. Here was where orders once echoed, now it was where choices began. No one rules the free, she said. We guide each other, we lift each other, we choose together. The crowd around her listened, not as soldiers, not as tools, but as people. A voice called from behind them. It was a messenger. He held a small device. His hands shook. A message from the Empire, he said. High priority. Direct from the council. Lyra nodded. Play. At the screen lit with a cold glow, a masked figure appeared. Its voice smooth like oil on water. You have made noise. You have gathered broken pieces of forgotten worlds. You stand now thinking you are strong, but strength is not fire. Strength is ordered. The crowd was silent, not from fear, but from focus. The figure continued. We offer peace, we offer safety. You and the human may walk away. No chains, no trials. Leave now and take your voices with you, or stay and burn with your cause. The message ended. The device fell quiet. Reyna looked at Lyra. He saw the storm behind her calm eyes. They want to cut the head in silence. The heart, he said. She stepped forward, her voice clear like a bell through smoke. We are not asking for safety. We are not afraid of trials. And we are not leaving. The people around her raised their hands, some in fists, some open wide, all in unison. Turned to the sky. He knew what the Empire feared, not weapons, not ships, but belief. He remembered his first day on this station, when he was given Lyra as a reward, a prize for war, a symbol of power. He had looked into her eyes and saw a person, not a tool, not a servant. And now she stood before him, not as a gift, but as a leader. He walked up beside her. He was offered peace without purpose, he said. But what is peace if it comes with silence? What is life if it is lived in chains? He turned to the crowd. I choose to fight, not because I love war, but because I love what we can become. Voices began to rise, some old, some young, some new. One by one they stepped forward, not with weapons but with truth. A builder from the lower decks, a cook from the supply ships, a healer from a forgotten moon. They all stood beside Lyra and Reyna, and together they became something the Empire had never planned for. A choice too loud to ignore, a light too bright to hide from orbit. The Empire watched ships floated above like silent watchers, waiting for the order, but no order came. Inside the high command chamber, the leaders argued. If we strike now, we make them heroes, one said. If we wait, we lose the stars, said another. The leader stood and raised his hand. We do nothing, he said. Let them build, let them try. They will fail without fire. They will break under their own dreams. But he was wrong. Dreams built on truth do not break, they grow. Days turned into weeks. The station changed. Walls came down, schools were opened, old prisoners were freed. Lyra taught not with orders but with questions. She asked the young what they wanted, and they told her with wide eyes and trembling hands. Reyna built with his own hands. Houses, gardens, peaceful corners. He smiled less, but he stood stronger. One night, they sat under the stars. No guards, no noise, just wind and memory. Do you ever regret it? She asked. Never, he said, because you are no longer in chains, and neither am I. She looked up at the sky. New stars were being named, not by rulers but by those once forgotten. This was the choice they made, not to destroy but to build, not to rule but to share, not to be remembered as rebels, but as the ones who began again. And somewhere in the dark the Empire watched, still powerful, still cold, but now afraid, not of armies but of voices, not of ships, but of ideas, because the future had chosen its path and it did not wear chains anymore.